Hello and welcome to another edition of Digital Dialogues from Maritime Gateway. Today, our guest is Captain Vivek Anand. Captain Vivek Anand is the Group CEO of MSA Global Logistics Private Limited. He spearheads the various verticals of the organization, which are container freight stations, empty container depots, freight forwarding, warehousing, pan-India, etc. His wide-ranging and elite experience encompasses the liner container business, break bulk, car carriers, passenger vessels, etc. His earlier stint was with NYK Line, wherein he started NYK Line's business development vertical for the first time in India and was subsequently elevated to head of the All India operations for their liner container business, break bulk business, car carriers, and passenger vessels carriers from 2010 onwards. He has won multiple awards, accolades, including Dynamic Logistic Professional of the Year and Most Exemplary Multifaceted Personality of the Year. He has been part of key committees in leading industry associations and government advisory boards. He was the first ever Indian Regional Vice President of FONASBA, Middle East and India Subcontinent, Vice Chairman of Federation of Indian Logistics Association, President of MANSA for 2 consecutive years, and then among the Indian icons of shipping and logistics, among others. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, Captain Vivek Anand. Welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure, sir, and always nice to speak to you anytime.
So let me begin the conversation. When I look at your profile, you have a very wide range of experience in container business, car carriers, energy transportation, a lot of stuff. And then your current portfolio seems to be more on the land side and all that. So I am curious to know how you are adapting to the shift in the operations and what is exciting for you now.
So having worked for large shipping companies, I was 23 years with a Norwegian shipping company called Will Wilhelmsen, and then about 19, 20 years with NYK Line in India. Having looked after the purely shipping part of the business, I'm now into the marine infrastructure or logistics infrastructure space, as they say. So yes, it's a learning. It's been 44 years in the shipping and logistics industry. And yes, there's a lot more. And, frankly speaking, I haven't met a single person in my career who knows it all or who's done it all. The more you see, the more you learn, and the better it is for you and for the others. So it's interesting. Having worked for multinational companies, I am now able to apply my learnings with big companies and help India centric business to grow. And the idea would be to, first grow within India and then slowly try and go global if possible. So let's see how it goes. Time will tell the story.
So if we look at the commonality of both the sides of your professional career, containers is one common thing that is in the plate, right? So how do you see the global scenario of the containers and when you come to the India, how do you see the container current market and what are your impressions for the next couple of quarters?
So I think I'll have to break the question up into 3 parts. The first part is, what is container trade? And I've said this fairly often at different forums. Container trade, unlike what most people think, is only 17% of the global trade. And in India, Indian trade, seabound trade, it's only 16%. So there's a lot more to shipping than just containers. That's the first point. Going forward, the way we've seen a huge upswing during or just after COVID, year 21-22 was very good for all shipping companies and all businesses related to shipping and logistics. So there was a huge upswing, something which was completely unprecedented. But in hindsight, today we can analyze and say why that upswing was there. That's become quite clear now. But going forward, at this point in time, yes, the rates have crashed. Everybody is feeling the crunch. The market is at its pre-COVID lowest ebb, and I don't see a very drastic improvement. What I see is that yes, the season is just starting. September, October is the time when the season picks up for the trade. But till now there has not been a very significant change. What the pundits are saying is that in 2024 the trade is going to rise. The global trade is expected to rise about 3% or so. So yes, next year should be better, but I don't think it'll be anywhere close to the 21-22 levels. Not in the near future for sure.
So most of your activities or rather the group's activities are linked with the landside infrastructure. So how do you see the landside infrastructure coming up in India, and where do you see the potential for the infrastructure part of it?
And to be honest, I see a huge scope for land infrastructure. What is the differentiation going to be? I think the differentiation going to be is who can provide quality services, on-time services, people who have the cutting edge over the competition. If it's going to be just, I mean, let me take an example of, say, you want to set up a warehouse. If it's going to be run-of-the-mill warehouse, I don't think you stand much of a chance. But yes, if you have a state-of-the-art facility, you have good ID systems, you have a good management and a crew who can deliver on-time services. There's a new concept which is started. Earlier they used to call it just in time, but now is just in sequence. So there is going to be a combination of JIT and JIS, which is and people who are able to master that will definitely do well in the years to come. Because India basically has a very huge scope. You see, India is a developing company. We're looking at $5 trillion. But to be honest, I have seen figures, and in fact, I'm working on one presentation at this point in time, which says by 2050, we will be almost $24 trillion, anything between $22 to $24 trillion, which is a very huge, four-folded of, if you take the current 3.5 trillion as the base, we're almost talking about 7-8 times the current size of the economy. So everything, not only marine infrastructure or logistic infrastructure, all kind of manufacturing services in the service sector is going to flourish. And I think it's people who are geared up, who have some years of experience behind, and who can make that cutting edge difference are the ones who are going to succeed.
Now let us talk about soft infrastructure, which means essentially the regulatory framework that we have. So apart from being head of a large companies, you are also on several trade bodies. You have represented them. You have prepared white papers. If you look at a decade's time, what has changed in the regulatory framework, whether it is on the shipping ministry side or on the customs side? So what has changed in these years, and what is still needs to be changed?
Firstly, to start with, yes, there has been a huge change. There has been a mindset change where people within the government or administration are thinking international. They are thinking quality. They're looking at things from the consumer's point of view, which is a very positive. But on the other side, what I would say is, I've been part of various committees, and there is a lot which is talked about, which is, they put pen to the paper, it's documented. But that shift, the speed of shift or change is not fast enough. We people having worked for multinationals, it takes us time to decide because, we have to gain concessions. We have to win people over in whatever the objectives are being set for the company. But once we decide, then the implementation is spot on, bang on. There is no Nobody questions. Here something is proposed, 10 people will oppose it. You know, let me take a simple example. Very recent. 5 years ago, I had a huge issue when I was proposing that cabotage rule should be abolished and, coastal shipping should be open. And there was a hue and cry, there was a bounce back from the industry, which I had to face up to. But today we've come to the same crossroads. Now, what was my thinking at that point in time? My thinking was in the 90s, early 90s, India opened up to the world. Everybody said that we are selling the country to the world. Today, after 30 years, look where we are. We are just short of being a superpower. People are listening to us. Our population has become our strength. Our workforce has become our strength. So we have opened up, right? And we have seen the benefits. And that is exactly what my thinking was 5 years ago. And I will reiterate that is let us open up. Yes, you want to keep a certain share or a predominant share for Indian business people, no harm. But let the competition come in because that is where the efficiency and the quality will come. And who is the end gainer? It is the Indian public and the government.
Now, since you brought up the topic of cabotage relaxation, so what do you feel now? It will really help improving coastal shipping?
Yes, I feel it will. But there are a few things which have to be looked at. International shipping is a big game, and the cost of international shipping calling India is the same as for coastal shipping. You see, for example, a pilot cost or a tugboat, whether it's a big ship or a small ship, the rates are more or less the same. So I think somewhere the administration will have to step in and take care of such things, to the size of business, size of capability must be taken into account when you're levying the port charges to the coastal operators. So yes, that'll have to be looked into, but step in the right direction, let's say.
So our policy makers' outlook also seems to be looking for a global connectivity. If you look at the recent G20 summit, Prime Minister has announced a big economic corridor connecting to the Europe through Middle East and all that. So, how do you look at these kind of a global connectivity? What will, in terms of benefit to the trade or to the country?
Yeah. So the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, well, it's been existing, but not fully exploited. I think it's a step in the right direction. And it should grow, especially I would say India to Middle East sector, which was started about 2 years ago. Some direct services have come in from, and with the agreement with UAE, the trade has definitely improved between India and the Middle East. Further to Europe is a question. I think it is the infrastructure that will have to be coming first. Before that can be completely, exploited to its fullest. The other corridor, which you didn't mention, is the Eastern corridor, which is coming up between Chennai and Russian ports of Vladivostok, So, but there I see a little bit of a problem, to be honest. Most of the consumption in Russia is in the western parts of Russia. So having an Eastern corridor, yes, it'll probably give some advantages in trading with Southeast Asia and Inter-Asia partners because that is the biggest trade that India has. But the cost of transportation from East Russia to West Russia, firstly, will increase the transit time, and there is a huge rail cost, rail and or road cost. The last mile connectivity. So, I to be honest, I'm in two minds whether that will really take off and be a very powerful trade route in the years to come. But yes, it does. This does offer another alternative to people who are looking for, solutions.
During post-COVID scenario, a lot of experts felt that situation will lead to a lot of near sourcing, also India will become an alternative like China plus one theory. These kind of perspectives came out. So how do you look at India taking advantage and being a manufacturing hub, and then exports will happen? Because when I look at still exports haven't picked up the way they should have. So what is your perspective from the trade?
Well, I would start with saying that initially it used to be the China, 20 years ago, it used to be the China story. Then it became China, India story. Then it became India, China story. And now I feel it's India, India story. For big manufacturing bases to shift from China to India, it's not something that is going to happen in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. It'll take, 5 to 7, 10 years before that hub activities can be shifted and India can become alternative. I see a tremendous amount of scope for India there to grow, both in imports and in exports. And why is this happening? It is because of the economic stability of manufacturing countries. Logical, strategic location of movement of goods at a faster pace and a lower cost. And number three is, there's a tremendous amount of support from the international community for India today, whether it is on the business side or cultural side, or any which way you want to take it. And so, yeah, I see a huge growth. I would say if we are not, if it's not the golden era, it's probably the golden period, the next 15 to 20 years that India is going to see. And I think going forward, we will be number one or number two economy in the world. There is no doubt in my mind about it. USA and Europe, I've used this frame. It may sound a little rude, but, I think we need to stop flogging a dead horse. There is no growth. And just to share another interesting feature, by 2040, 73% of the world population will be living in the Asia Pacific and Africa regions. So even the consumption base, it's not only going to be a manufacturing base, but also a huge consumption base, which these countries in the India, Far East, and Africa is going to provide to the rest of the world. So yes, this is where the knowledge is. This is where the manpower is. This is where the manufacturing is going to be, or is being set up at this point in time. That's the way I see it.
Let us talk a little bit about MSA Global.
Yes, sir.
Now the group seems to be into almost all the verticals, into warehousing, freight forwarding, empty container yards, container freight stations. So can you give me an insight into each of these verticals, how the business is spread, and what is the current business focus, and what are any expansion plans that you have in the future? So
on the CFS front, well, we are having a difficult time. And as you know, most of the coastal areas have been declared as red zones. So there is very limited growth. Also with this D2D deliveries, and, the market is today being controlled by CHAs and consignee. So yes, it's a tough one. There has been a price war. I think we've hurt ourselves, shot ourselves in the foot. But having said that, it's going to be tough going on the CFS side. Empty container depots, I think there is a huge growth possible over there because a lot of imports are coming in, and there will be a requirement for state-of-the-art empty depots all over the country. So that's a positive. Freight forwarding, huge scope again. Warehousing, bonded warehouse, domestic warehousing is a huge business and is going to continue growing. Here, I think on the warehousing side, there's one very interesting fact which I can share with you, is the e-consolidators, people who are working inside warehouses, and have to, actually take, let's say you order a pair of Adidas shoes, size 8, and I order a pair of, Nikes or something of that sort. And both have size 8. One will, the e-consolidator is going to take out the Nike, and the same e-consolidator is going to take out the Adidas shoe and pack it in, let's say, Flipkart or something of that sort, and send it to you. Now, this market at this point in time is 80% unorganized. Going forward, I think tables are going to turn. 80% will be organized and 20% will be, unorganized. So I think that's a huge scope for logistics companies or the warehouse players to, change the name of the game. And that's something, one should look into going forward. So yeah, warehousing has a huge scope. Contract logistics with the manufacturing that is going to happen or is happening within the country is another very huge scope. So no problems. In general, I feel trade is going to pick up. And I would share with you that not many people realize that the 10% of the world's seaborne trade is to and from India. There are 186 countries in the world, but 10% of the entire global trade is to and from India. We have a 7,500 kilometer pipeline. I think, we need to have think tanks set up. And again, I had written a white paper on this topic many years back. We need to have a think tank who can say, okay, what is going to be the scenario 20 years from now? And prepare today. We can't, firefight 20 years later and start solving the issues that we face at that point in time. We have to plan. We have to put the infrastructure in place and be futuristic in our way of thinking and doing things.
On that note, Captain Vivek, thank you very much for joining us and sharing a lot of insights into container operations and the market and the tremendous growth opportunities for India and also your group, MSA Global's business strategies. So thank you very much. I wish the think tank idea, at least we now give shape to that and then materialize. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, sir. Thank you.